This question is related to the impact indigenous civilian populations play in war and insurgencies like this. The question comes from a Ukrainian young professional with a degree from Boston University in finance and now in the IT industry. He was from Bucha before the massacre and is awaiting conscription in the military, but wants to do anything he can do now by using his current skills. He asks, almost all the liberated cities that were under the temporary occupation of the Russian forces report facts of inhumane treatment of local population by those forces, such as mass killings, execution, rape, and torture. These are not accidental cases. This is a system. Based on your observations and past experiences in war, what countermeasures can Ukrainian non-combatants do, considering the Russian tactics?
As the questioner rightly noted, I think it's accurate to say that there is a culture of war crimes that permeates all of the Russian units. This is not an aberration. This is not an exception as it would be in our military. And I should note that we made mistakes over the years. We essentially broke the international law when it comes to the law of land warfare, to the Geneva Convention from time to time. Some of those were particularly significant, such as what took place at the detention facility just west of Baghdad. But those were exceptions. And when those happened, as you will recall, we then did investigations that were honest and accurate. We determined what happened. We took remedial action, we took action, punitive action, and we spread the word to make sure that we didn't do that again. In the case of the Russians, it appears that it is cultural to carry out these kinds of criminal activities. And I think the only action that can be taken, and has been taken, frankly, is to document this as carefully as is absolutely possible so that there can be, over time, international awareness of what has taken place, of the culture that does permeate the Russian system, and not just the tolerance, but the encouragement of this, the direction to take these inhuman and also inhumane activities. So again, documenting this, and every person with a smartphone these days is a reporter. There are social media platforms onto which this kind of activity can be uploaded. And certainly that is what should be done. And if I could point out, by the way, because the questioner asked or had the question that this is a counterinsurgency. Actually, this is not. This is still just, in large measure, conventional warfare. There might be insurgent activity inside a city that is occupied by Russia, like Kherson or Mariupol or some of the others in the south and southeast, and a few in the eastern part of the country. But by and large, Ukraine is not occupied by Russian forces, and you therefore don't need insurgent activity or support for insurgents. You need support actually for frontline forces. And that's really what the Ukrainian people are doing so impressively. They are ensuring that these soldiers have hot food, that they have an opportunity to rest when they can come off the front lines, that they're supported in every possible way. And that includes some activities that actually are very, very significant to disrupting, for example, the command and control system of the Russians. It's well known now that the Russian communication system is not the sophisticated frequency hopping secure transmissions that you and I knew in our military. Rather, it is actually in the open on HF, high frequency radio channels, without encryption. So any Ukrainian citizen with a police scanner or a ham radio operator can actually identify these channels, find them, listen to them, and record them if it's interesting. For example, when Russian soldiers are criticizing their leaders, which goes on quite regularly, and then jam them literally by transmitting over top of them, as you would appreciate. And that's just one of many, many activities that Ukrainian civilian citizens have been taking that are actually of enormous help to the soldiers on the front lines, because in this case, the inability to communicate from high levels to low levels requires the generals and also the battalion and brigade and regimental commanders to come to the front to get out of their vehicles. And when they do that, very skilled Ukrainian snipers are picking them off. It's at least 10 or 11 Russian general officers that have been killed so far. That is a staggering number when you consider that the entire US military lost one general officer during the course of our decades in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so this is a huge blow to the Russian leadership. And you can imagine that the numbers of battalion and brigade commanders are many multiples of those in the general officer ranks. But there are many, many examples of this. There are examples of Russian citizens who are just reporting, or of Ukrainian citizens who are just reporting what Russians are doing within sight of those citizens. There are activities that can assist in terms of providing various logistical support that might be possible from citizens to the soldiers, again, on the front lines. The list is very considerable. And what has been so admirable and impressive about the Ukrainian citizens is that everyone has gotten into the fight. Everyone is trying to help the soldiers, the military, those who are actually on the front lines, and those who are in other positions and other duties behind the front lines, supporting those on the front lines. So you really have a nation in arms. You have an entire nation that has been mobilized by very inspirational leadership at the very top, led by President Zelensky and those around him. And that is not just inspiring those within Ukraine, it's also been a major factor in inspiring those outside Ukraine to support those who are there. I think in the early days, there was a real question about whether the Ukrainian forces could withstand the assault of the Russians. A lot of observers overestimated, of course, what the Russians would do and underestimated what the Ukrainians would do. I must say that when I was at the Munich Security Conference, one of the questions that I had for the group of Ukrainian parliamentarians who were there was to ask, we really need to know whether you are all truly going to fight. Well, that question has been more than answered. Everyone is engaged in this. And of course, no adult males have left the country. They're all staying and contributing, but so are those, again, of all ages and of all sexes and everything else. Everybody is in this fight. And that is one of the reasons that so many people around the world have been inspired to help.